What is up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy Chef, and you already know what time it is. It is time for the YAK Pod, episode number 67. Now, today we have a very special guest. The guest is coming by the kitchen today to hang out and talk about Detroit Lions and talk about draft stuff. That is John Macaron, the doc. Now, let me tell you a little bit about John. John is a licensed psychologist. He's been a licensed psychologist since 2004, helping adolescents, adults, and couples successfully navigate mental health challenges. He is the host of the Doc and Jock podcast, Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast, and Lone Wolves Podcast. He has been writing for Sports Illustrated Fan Nation, covering the Detroit Lions since 2019, and in 2023 he founded the Detroit Sports Podcast. Now, everyone, welcome in the Doc. What's going on, Doc?
Everybody, welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor. I definitely enjoyed your podcast. It's great to broadcast, talk about the draft. It's a great time in Detroit. Thank you for the kind intro. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's a great opportunity to talk about the Lions.
Did I leave anything out?
No, it was all good, man.
All right.
Man, it's been a good journey in sports and psychology. I just think that now finally we get a lot more happiness talking about the Detroit's football team, man. And coming off of the draft, everybody is hyped up. I'm feeling good, looking forward to breaking it down. I think everybody's excited nationally when you hear all the reviews about Brad Holmes' draft. It's been favorable, so it's nice. It's a big pick-me-up after a positive weekend.
Yeah. It was very positive. I had a moment where I had a meltdown. We can talk about it. I'm currently recovering, getting over it. Now, let me ask you a question. Would you agree, in light of Matthew Stafford's comments, after he had months to think about what he wanted to say, and then his wife's comments about needing closure after they broke up with us, wanted to rip our hearts out, would you agree that there is a budding rivalry with the Los Angeles Rams?
Yeah, it was great having them come in to be an opponent at Ford Field. It had a lot of storylines, and as a writer, all you can ask for is great, juicy storylines, some intrigue that people are going to care about, and certainly people cared about Matthew Stafford returning, and proud of the fans. They booed him mercilessly. Look, it wasn't personal. It was just the fact that, hey, he was the guy wearing the opposite jersey.
Right.
And look, I don't care about Matthew Stafford's opinion about anything. His
Right.
12 years in Detroit were wasted. And like you said, he walked into the office and tapped out. He said,
Exactly.
I don't want to be part of the journey anymore. I want to get out, and good for him. He was well within his right to do it. And for Matthew Stafford, look, good for him. He got his ring. He moved on. But this is Detroit. And now you look at it, and what a great opportunity for the Lions to keep things rolling. Thank you to the Rams for giving us Brad Holmes and
Yes.
all the great, opportunities now that the Lions have to build this roster and to be successful. Man, Brad Holmes is probably one of the great Detroit sports hires. And what I like about him is that he's not afraid to show a little swagger. Hey, he's heard all the critics about some of his picks. And, he heard a lot of the noise last year, especially for Gibbs and Campbell. And he's kind of saying, hey, wait a minute, I draft good players. Look at the turnaround in 3 years. And so with the Rams, I think that they're now in a rebuilding mode as well. And Aaron Donald just retired. I want to whoop their ass again. I hope we play them in the postseason again. It would be a great. It was great not only to play the Rams in the postseason, but to put Matthew Stafford into the turf on numerous occasions. And yeah, it's unfortunate, for Kelly Stafford to have her children booed, but you didn't have to walk across the field at Ford Field. You could have hid away in a suite the entire game. You didn't have to expose your family to the harsh realities of NFL fans by parading your children out there on the field in Rams gear. What did you expect? So you got your closure. Look, we thank the Staffords for their charitable donations to Detroit. But
Right.
in regards to football, thank gosh they're gone. We can have a chance
Exactly.
to turn the page and get some success.
Exactly. Um, well, that leads to. I'm glad you mentioned that the Rams gave us Brad Holmes because my meltdown moment came at pick 19 when they snatched out my heart and they took Jared Verse. I was done. I was done with the draft. I didn't care. I don't have any problem with any of Brad Holmes' picks. I wasn't able to properly celebrate the Terrion Arnold pick because I was distraught. I was distraught. I allowed myself to believe that Jared Verse was going to be a Detroit Lion, and I was done. I tweeted out, I was like, whoever gets selected to the Lions, welcome to Detroit, I guess. But I quit. I'm done. But I'm back now. I'm okay.
Well,
I'm okay.
no, it's good. No, we all have players that you fall
Yeah.
in love with. And Jared Verse, many people would love to have seen him opposite of Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
But I think when you dig deeper, you realize, okay, they got James Houston, Marcus Davenport, they got the
Yep.
Canadian and Matthew Betts. They got options.
They
But
do.
yeah, we would have loved to get Jared Verse. I put out a couple articles, mocking Verse to the Lions, trading up. He's got a lot of things that people would like,
Yeah.
but I think in terms of pass rush, the Lions are going to be okay heading into 2024 if everybody stays healthy. The key is going to be Marcus Davenport. He has
Yeah.
a history of being somebody that, has dealt with injuries, but when he's healthy, he can do some things in the pass rush. And
Hmm.
one of the new draft picks, Mekhi Wingo, can also do some things from the interior if he gets his opportunity. So yeah, I know the new player, the new draft prospect would have impressed you, but I think it's going to be okay. The defense is at least better than it was back in 2021 and 2022.
It's much better. Um, I think once I watched, because I was in a gym a couple of days ago and I was watching, well, mostly listening to, because, when you're in the gym, you're working out. But so mostly listening to Terrion Arnold on the Rich Eisen show. And just the way that he talked about himself, the way that he talked about his process, his mentorship that came from his grandfather, and the way that he deals with adversity and where his challenges, his not challenges, where his charisma and his swagger comes from, and his confidence. That just made me feel a whole lot better. Again, had no problem with the pick. Had no problem with Terrion Arnold. But just to get my excitement going, that helped me to do it. So I'm really excited about seeing Terrion Arnold hit the field. I'm not sure if he's going to start, but I know that there's a lot of dogs in that secondary and there's going to be lots of competition. And I'm happy that someone like Amik Robertson, he welcomes that. He has that chip on his shoulder. I used to play cornerback as well. I was never a big guy, so I understand the mentality. Going out there playing like you're a foot taller than you actually are. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm happy about that. I'm happy about Ennis Rakestraw at 61. I did not want him at 29, but the fact that we got him at 61, that was a steal. So I want to ask you, what was your favorite pick of the draft?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, taking two cornerbacks, I know maybe is a little bit jarring, but you needed to upgrade that unit by a lot. And the position's so tough that, look, if one of them doesn't work out, you at least have an opportunity now to maybe find at least one of a prospect that you can develop. And you hope maybe one, maybe hopefully two will develop. But it's a tough position. And it gives the Lions options. You can maybe play Rakestraw on the interior as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Terry Arnold's going to compete to be a starter. I think my favorite pick, though, probably is Mekhi Wingo because of the fact that, you know what, when you look at his film at LSU wearing number 18, I love the fact that he brought the pressure and he's somebody that clearly displayed a level of leadership, choosing to battle back from injury and play in the bowl game. and not just leaving his teammates high and dry and going for the NFL. And you look at it too, and looking at it in the future, a couple of years from now, it's really intriguing to potentially pair up Mekhi Wingo with Broderick Martin, one big monster of a run defender, pairing him with an athletic interior rusher is really interesting. And you never know. I'm not advocating that the Lions move on from Aleem McNeil, but you know that when all these fat contracts are getting doled out, somebody potentially could be moved on from. It could be Aleem. You never know. But hopefully they retain Aleem McNeil, number 54, man, because he rocks it. He does a great job. But Mekhi Wingo, I like the pick because I think that to get interior pass rush is really difficult. And look, we don't want to say that, he's Aaron Donald, but if the guy that was part of the evaluation of Aaron Donald likes the presence of a little bit of an undersized defensive lineman, now we're going to get a chance at rookie minicamp to see what he can do. As long as he stays healthy, then you think maybe potentially you're going to upgrade that defensive line with a young prospect that maybe can do some things.
Yeah. The Aaron Donald comparisons have been started by Doc. I have nothing to do with that. So are you calling a double-digit sack year for Aleem McNeil?
Dream big, man. I think that Aleem McNeil, look, I don't know if I see double-digit sacks, but I think what you see is a player that has really taken efforts to improve his game year after year, transformed his body, transformed his diet, and I think that when you see the defensive line, you got a guy that, as a defensive tackle, can really do some things. And you realize, too, that what did we always complain about with the Lions? They just couldn't stop the run 2 years ago. Now they're one of the most stout run defenders out there, and that's partly due to Aleem McNeil. He plays physical, violent, and he's part of that turnaround. And, now that you give him a couple other options with DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, oh my goodness, I just can't wait to see potentially what Reader is going to do his first year. And that can only help Aleem McNeil rack up some sacks. Maybe he'll approach double digits, but I just think it's really tough as well because people recognize too that, hey, it's a passing league and these quarterbacks are so mobile that when you hear the complaints about those defenders not getting enough sacks, man, it's impossible. I mean, these quarterbacks, 2.5 seconds, they're getting that football out. So, there aren't too many quarterbacks now in the next 2 or 3 years that are going to be just pocket passers. There's always going to be now this movement to get mobile quarterbacks. But Aleem McNeil's got a lot of potential. And I wonder, though, would a team out in the AFC or NFC, would a team offer him a big money contract moving forward that maybe the Lions can't match? So we'll see. But another big year for Aleem.
Yeah, so a question that I want to ask. You've got your sources on the inside. You rub elbows in the NFL circles. Is there anything that you can give us? Any tea leaves that you've read about the health prospects of Marcus Davenport? Because if he can return to his 9 sacks in 11 games, if he can return to that form, I know he'll be a beast for us. My biggest concern is the health. So have you heard anything about that to assuage our concerns?
Yeah, in a month or so, we'll see physically what he's got in regards to mandatory minicamp. Haven't heard anything inquired about the health status because it's the off season. But by and large, when we spoke to him, I think he said he's going to be prepared and ready to go to handle business. And I think the lucky thing is that the health that the biggest question marks are probably going to be Emmanuel Mosley coming off of the ACL, the second one. You want to see what he brings to the table. But relatively speaking, DJ Reader as well. Another player that revealed that he had surgery that's not going to be available at minicamp. He's not going to be available until training camp. Kirby Joseph. And whenever you have a hip situation, that's concerning. But I think with Davenport, that's the key is that, unfortunately the Vikings didn't get enough out of him. But I think that when you see what he brings to the table, I think this guy can do some things. And look, when Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn are comfortable with you, it gives you instant credibility. And I think that he's going to come in and really want to prove himself. And that's part of the benefit of these guys that the Lions target that take these kind of prove it deals and are guys coming off of injury, that if they show out and they do if they have the opportunity to play at a high level in this defense, then in a year or two when their contract comes up, because Brad Holmes is not really anchoring himself to a lot of long-term contracts in free agency, then if they perform, look at it, even though CJ Garner-Johnson was only in town for a short stay, he had such swagger that he got himself a massive contract. The same thing can be said for the likes of Davenport and others as well, and Carlton Davis too. He's going to be trying to prove himself to try and earn a fat contract extension moving forward. So it's a lot of good things that the Lions do to try and show, hey, if you play well, there's a chance you could stay here or get a big money contract somewhere else. But I think Davenport is going to be okay, at least early on. That's the hope, is that these guys got to stay healthy when the season progresses. When it comes down to December and January, we got to get lucky and get these guys healthy.
Yeah. So I think with some sort of amalgamation of James Houston and Marcus Davenport, we can be okay. I like to call him James Davenport. So, but speaking of Brad Campbell, another one of my creations, being comfortable with you, what did you think about the Sione Vaki pick?
Yeah, it was. Look, I mean, I think for most people putting together mock drafts, that was the free one. Everybody knew that he was a potential target of the Lions. And there's so much good information out there, good reports, that most of the top 30 visits were reported on. And the Lions definitely target a lot of guys that they did indeed take that came in for top 30 visits. And when you look at it, Sione Vaki has a lot of intangibles that the Lions like. I mean, if you saw Brad Holmes talking to Danny Rogers, he was almost taken aback, aghast that Vaki did his workout and did 4 positions in a workout. You know how hard that is to go through and do a defensive backs workout, a running backs workout, a safety workout, and a special teams workout all in the same day. Brad Holmes was like, this guy was fading, but he kept pushing through and was trying to impress all those that came to see him, and that really left a lasting mark. And this guy's a gamer. That's what the Lions are looking for. They want a guy that can be versatile, do a lot of different things. But first and foremost, I think clearly he'll be a special teams contributor, maybe even earn the spot as the returner with the new kickoff rules. Everybody should be excited because you look at a guy that when you see the tape, you see what he did at Utah. His average yards per reception was out of this world. I think that he, was put in a situation where, he had to play safety and running back. But on offense, I think in Detroit, that's going to be his first calling card is to play a little bit of offense and special teams, and he'll have a chance. And number one thing is I can't wait to see at training camp the competition between Bam Knight, Craig Reynolds, and Sione Vaki. That can only make everybody better to see who's going to end up on the depth chart as the third running back. But I think that special teams will be his calling card early. It's exciting because I think you get a guy that if Ben Johnson gets creative with, you have another option in the offensive attack.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he can throw the football because that would just be he'd be the ultimate Swiss Army knife. But one thing that I really liked about him, if we're talking about defensively, is the fact that he played running back, so he understands. He ran those wheel routes, you know. He ran those swing passes, so he can understand when a running back is about to do something like that. I mean, he carved up defenses when he would run a rear route and just take it up the sideline for a touchdown. So now he can instantly identify, okay, what is the alignment of the running back? What is his body language when he comes up? Is he gonna run a comeback, a curl? Is he gonna run a flat out, or is he just gonna keep it running around the wheel? So that is something that he brings to the table once he finally does get a shot to fill in on defense. Now we're hoping he doesn't fill in on defense because that means someone's injured. So we hope that he's just kind of like undeniable and he's got certain packages, much like Brian Branch, and he has to get on the field. Now, keeping with Sione Vaki, you brought up something interesting when you were talking about all of the different position groups that he did those workouts for. So you look at him, he got drafted in the fourth round. Then you look at someone like Travis Hunter, who Deion Sanders is trying to get to be the first pick overall. Do you think that the NFL is evolving to a place where teams are going to allow you to do what you did in high school, which I think everyone played both ways in high school. I was a running back and a cornerback. But when you get to college, you kind of get specialized into one side of the ball. So you have these outliers. Do you think they're going to be more and more common in the NFL as we go forward?
Man, that's interesting because of Travis Hunter. You saw it was able to do that successfully at college, but you did see that his season get a little bit cut short with an injury. So that's the number one thing that I think would prevent that from happening is that, look, the NFL is tough to master at one position. Could you imagine now trying to master two? And it's a very rare athlete that could do it. It's going to take somebody with a big personality like a Travis Hunter to try and ask a coach to do it. But I don't think on a regular basis, maybe spell here, a package here or there. But heavy reps, I think that most NFL players want to specialize because you got to be in these meeting rooms. You know how much more taxing it is to try and be part of installs of two units. That is just, that it would be, if somebody tried to ask to do that, I would definitely have an elevated level of respect for that player because basically they're doubling their work. And it's just nearly impossible with the level of detail that these coaches want, that's put in every week with the installs, the meetings. So to me, I just think that a player should specialize in one position, try to master one position and do one thing really well. And if you're Travis Hunter, I'll say this. I respect you, Chef, for playing cornerback. My mantra is friends don't let friends play corner because the offensive side of the ball is so much more rewarding, so much more intriguing. The league is moving away from physicality. You can't breathe on these receivers. You can't do anything to try and get the advantage. And it's I can't wait to see the first couple of meetings between Rome Odunze and Terrion Arnold, or the Lions cornerbacks against Justin Jefferson. The Lions were able to a couple times limit Justin Jefferson, but he's also had his moments. So to me, I focus more on, hey, if you want to have a long-lasting career, the odds indicate that playing offense gives you the better opportunity, man. Defenders have it rough in this league where officials, we all know, are subpar, and you can't even breathe on a wide receiver pass. I mean, we all remember the physicality, the man coverage, the press man that you could do. You could rough up a receiver. Now it's crazy. You see so many cornerbacks playing 6 yards off that it's disturbing at the highest levels, zone coverages and different packages, that it's not the same. It's basically, hey, who can make the one stop defensively? And you go from there. So I don't see too many players trying to play both sides.
Yeah. Well, when I played, press man was my favorite because I like to tell people that receivers ran whatever route I told them to run.
That's right.
So I was like I guess you could call me a shutdown corner. I mean, it was high school, so I can't toot my horn too much. But there weren't a lot of balls coming my way. Pause. But then I also play running back, which is another position which is, being marginalized. Hopefully with the Jahmyr Gibbs pick, Brad Holmes is helping to revitalize running backs, but we'll see. So what was your opinion about the Manu pick?
Yeah, if you guys check out all lines, I had a chance because like everybody else, I was a little bit shocked. The Lions traded up for Giovanni Manu from British Columbia. Obviously our site had a preview of it in regards to a piece that we ran earlier in the day, players to target on day 3, I think. and we had his name on there. So I said to the writer, "Oh man, good for you! You had his name on there." Because when they called it, I'm like, "Who's that?" And first and foremost, 6'7", 350, and is athletic. You start and you say, okay, that translates in terms of the ability to be athletic and move around and potentially be a very solid offensive lineman. So I wanted to learn more about Giovanni Manu. So I talked to his coach. They were gracious enough to give me the opportunity to talk to Coach Blake Nill, and you guys can go check it out. It's on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I asked those questions. What about him playing right guard? What made him special? What does he bring to the table? And the coach, man, he said, look, 3 years ago, he sat him down and said, look, you have the opportunity based on your freakish athleticism to do some things. And this guy is quick, runs a sub-5 40-yard dash. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a risk. But to me, I love the fact that Brad Holmes has built up a roster where he can kind of pick one player that he says, you know what, maybe not ready to start right away, but we see something, we see the foundational pieces like a piece of molding clay and saying, you know what, maybe not NFL ready right now, but if we do our due diligence, if we take a guy that has the tools and we implement our system, then maybe we got something. They did it with Broderick Martin. They did it now with Giovanni Manu. He doesn't have to start. If something does happen to Kevin Zeitler or Graham Glasgow, you have other options as well. But look, it's a gamble. This is a guy that played, Brad Holmes did say, playing low-level football. The jump to the NFL against these edges and defensive linemen is completely different. So he's good. But if you're going to go somewhere and develop, Detroit's the great spot with Hank Fraley, an underrated assistant coach that really should be talked about a lot more, that has kind of really has put his footprint on this offensive line for the past couple years. And for Giovanni, he's going to get an education quick with those linemen and the defensive linemen that are on the Lions roster. I think that he's going to have his opportunity. But Coach Nill said he belongs. Like he's physically going to be able to match up against any defensive lineman. I mean, look at it, 6'7", 350 pounds, athletic, and is humble and really has the mindset of somebody that just wants to put his head down and get to work. Not flashy, not going to be doing keg stand, probably end zone celebrations, but gritty, nasty, and is going to want to compete. And I think that something I asked Coach Nill was, that has to give a player confidence when an organization sees your workout and goes, whoa, not only do we want you, we want to trade draft picks for you. So that's going to give him confidence to get out there and compete at a high level. I like the pick. It's intriguing. I don't worry about the picks that were given up. I like the fact that, you know what, it's a gamble, but if it hits, you're going to have potentially the right tackle of the future.
Yeah, that's very true. And then you mentioned about giving up picks. When Brad Holmes was asked about like trading away future assets and being like shorthanded, I just need to understand, like, when is the media going to understand not to ask Brad Holmes certain questions? Because his answer when he just was like, I think we only have, like, we're missing a third round pick, right? Just the one third round pick. Would you call that shorthanded? No, yeah, I wouldn't. Like, when are they just gonna stop? Like, they gotta plan their questions better.
Okay, that wasn't me. So
I
first
know
and
it wasn't
foremost,
you.
so I'm not going to own that one. No, okay. So let me just defend the media just a little bit. Look, any draft pick, because there's only 7 of them,
Right.
usually they're viewed as a high commodity. And you saw that Brad was able to use a third round pick to kind of maneuver in this draft. But yes, I agree with you that I'm not worried about Brad Holmes maneuvering the draft. If he wants a third round pick, he'll have one by the time the draft starts. Only one pick did he make this year at his spot. He traded up 4 times, I believe, the entire draft, 3 on day 3. It was crazy. So I think we can not worry about Brad Holmes and the way in which he allocates capital. But people that do will say, well, you could have that third round pick to maneuver if you want a player. But at this point, when you potentially see what the Lions are capable of, Brad Holmes has built a roster pretty solidly in free agency and in the draft that even if there's a player that you want, maybe you don't get, that I think that the plan Bs are have the opportunity to do well here in Detroit. That Brad Holmes is not going to make a decision that he doesn't feel fully committed to. So to me, I don't worry about the trades and everything like that. I'm just thinking, at this point in the draft, the debate is, look, the draft that he had was good, but was it enough? The question that we're going to debate over the next few months, was this draft enough to maybe put this team over the hump to give everybody confidence that they can win the Super Bowl this year? I think they fell just short of that. I think the team is better, but you still have a couple of question marks. Like you said, who's going to play opposite of Aiden Hutchinson? Depth at safety. You have a couple of question marks, at wide receiver now that you let Josh Reynolds go. You have two older offensive linemen in Zeitler and Graham Glasgow. Yeah, the talent in the future looks good. You have replacements for guys maybe that you could let go, but there's going to be the biggest question mark that we're going to need to answer right when the season starts, because you're going to play a number one schedule. Where's the pass rush going to come from? Is it going to be DJ Reader and Aiden Hutchinson? Aiden you can count on for double-digit sacks, but teams know to double team him. They know they're holding the crap out of him. If he's being taken away, which most good teams will do, is they're going to double and they're going to chip Aiden Hutchinson. Who's going to be that guy? And there's a lot of question marks. We're going to assume it's going to be Reader and James Houston and Marcus Davenport. But until we see it, it's all speculation at this point. So I do think that the team is better defensively, but we got to wait and see to see when you play better opponents how that's going to shape out and gel. Because rookie corners, as much as we love Arnold and Rakestraw, it takes time to develop. Outside of Sauce Gardner, you haven't seen a cornerback just come in and shine. I think Derek Stingley took a season where he struggled year one until he showed what he was about. So it's going to be very fascinating to see, because this year it has the feel that the expectation is Super Bowl or bust. I think the team can get to the NFC Championship game, but then it's going to be big-time players got to make those big-time plays, and let's see if they actually can do it this year.
Yeah, I would think if they were able to get back to the NFC Championship game, the way in which this one finished, I think they are better equipped to finish an actual championship game.
Oh boy, that'd be great.
As long as Terrion Arnold is not shades of Jeff Okuda, I'm good, and I don't think he will be. So, so another thing that I wanted to ask you, when you talked about the draft picks, and I think we need to kind of, as fans, we're relearning how to walk, right? Because we had so many years of bad drafting, and we just needed the picks, So I feel like there were, and I felt this way going into the draft. I didn't feel like we needed to make 7 picks. If we could have got 2 or 3 difference makers, which obviously we did for the future, that would have been fine. But as far as a team that made a ton of picks, that was the Green Bay Packers. So they made a ton of picks. The Bears made some picks. The Vikings gave away a lot of picks to get one of my favorites in Dallas Turner. They got J.J. McCarthy. I mean, I know you're a State fan. I'm a Michigan fan. I was never a J.J. McCarthy guy. I just didn't see it. You know what I mean? He had some performances. He's a winner, right? I think he only lost like 1 game at Michigan. But it's just for the development. I think his development was a little bit slower than most of the quarterbacks that are in his position. So What do you think about the NFC North? Who do you think got much better? Who do you think is the immediate threat to the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, the immediate threat are the Packers.
Right.
No doubt about it. I think that with Jordan Love taking the developmental step, you've seen the proven coach out there. You recognize that they are very confident after a blowout playoff win. You see a team that's developing and they're hungry and they want to reclaim the throne that the Lions took from them. So I'm definitely am concerned about the Packers. The Vikings, I think you can safely assume that, outside of Justin Jefferson, they lost a key pass rusher in Daniil Hunter, and yeah, Dallas Turner is going to evolve eventually into a good one, but it's going to
Mm.
take some time. So I think that they're a team to be reckoned with later, but not right now. The team that's going to be intriguing is going to be the Bears because they're stout on defense. They
Mm.
allocated some funds. They've been using their picks to kind of, upgrade that defense, and then they used their 2 first-round picks to upgrade their offense. Now, the great thing is that when you say online, hey, I like Caleb Williams, I like Rome Odunze, the smart fans of Detroit are going to be like, great, you can like all that offense. Their offensive line is ass. It's terrible.
Yes, it
So
is.
the Lions,
Yes, it is.
if they can play stout defense and rush the quarterback, you saw Justin Fields when he was pressured, it was a disaster. He couldn't pass the ball. So Caleb Williams is going to be running for his life the first couple games against Detroit. So we'll see how creative he gets because one of the weaknesses I had also last week Eric Kramer on, and he said,
Mm.
"Man, Caleb Williams, he's got to learn to take the play as designed, and he sometimes, is going to force things and is going to do some things outside the parameters of an NFL offense, and that leads to turnovers. I expect a lot of turnovers from Caleb Williams year one. But, after that, though, if he settles in, gets humble, learns the NFL, because look, even Peyton Manning, I always give a rookie year one as a pass, especially the number one pick. You're going to
Right.
get a pass. You're getting all this guaranteed money. You're going to make all your mistakes. It happens. After that, if he learns to run an offense, look out because they have weapons. You look at it, even though many people here are not going to be as impressed. I think, Allen, Moore, Dunze, DeAndre Swift, that's a makeup of an NFL offense that, if led properly, can do some things, or at least enough if you have a good defense. So, and the Bears, they love the rivalry with Detroit. So Brad Holmes was asked at the draft following it. He said, this division probably could be the number one division in the entire NFL
Yeah.
relatively soon, as maybe even as early as 24. And
Yeah.
if things work out, if JJ does elevate the program at the Vikings, that could be the toughest division in all of football. So look out, Lions. It's time to keep proving it because just because you had that 1 year running the North doesn't mean you're going to run it forever. So it's going to be great competition all the way across the board. Those 6 games are going to be amazing to watch this year.
Yeah, with Brad Holmes, excuse me, with Brad Holmes at the helm, I feel a lot better with our division being the toughest. Because if it was someone
Yeah.
like Bob Quinn, it just wouldn't. We'd be at the bottom, no matter how tough or how easy the division was. But that was the thing that I had about Caleb Williams is it's gonna depend on his quarterback coach and his offensive coordinator if they can actually get him to take the checkdowns because their offensive line is nothing to speak of. So if you've got DJ Reader collapsing the pocket from inside, DJ and Aleem McNeil collapsing the pocket from the inside, and you've got Hutch coming from the outside, hopefully, like we said, James Davenport coming around the edge. And for those of you that weren't here in the beginning, I know it's Marcus Davenport and James Houston. I haven't mixed them up. But, collapsing the pocket around him because what I noticed about him, he's really good about moving around in the pocket. However, another thing that I noticed about him, just looking at his film and his highlights and things of this nature, he does have a tendency to stare down receivers. And you can't do that in the NFL. So if he's not taking the check down and he's staring receivers down, there's going to be a lot of interceptions. Look for him to be the second coming of Pick Mullins, right? We don't call him Nick around here. We call him Pick. What was your most egregious or the most ridiculous thing that you heard about the Lions draft?
Well, but mostly I think it's been reviewed favorably. You
Mm-hmm.
see across the country, people got the message that, hey, Brad Holmes is going to be reading your reviews and calling you out nationally if you say something that people don't like. But obviously, like you said, the biggest complaint is maybe, I think the biggest complaint, first and foremost, is trading away a pick next year in the third round. People like those picks. And second, I think people that will critique the draft will say, maybe the Manu pick you could have gotten later on. You could have maybe even risked it and maybe even gotten him as an undrafted free agent. He's somebody that played at the University of British Columbia. You probably didn't have to be so aggressive, but you hear that maybe other teams like the Jets and other franchises would probably have selected Manu in the fourth round as well. So you never know what is said in these draft rooms and things like that. But the most egregious, I don't think anything was said that was completely outrageous or out of bounds. Because to me, I respect people that have different opinions. I respect those that say, you didn't need two cornerbacks. You could have maybe even targeted somebody else. Those that say Darius Robinson could have been the pick, or that look at it, a draft from a different angle and wonder why they didn't take a receiver or why they didn't take a kicker at certain spots. So to me, I don't think anything was egregious. I think critiques are fair
Mm-hmm.
because the Lions have never won a Super Bowl. They got close this year, so that gives Brad Holmes a lot more credibility. But you can always critique drafts and always at least have the conversation that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what would have happened if they would have traded up for Robinson? What would have happened if they got Verse? What would have happened if
Don't do
last
that
year
to
they
me.
didn't
Don't
get
do that to me. Don't.
what
Don't.
would have happened if they did not take the running back in Gibbs and
Yeah.
Campbell? What if they did something different?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always fun to me. I don't discount just because there's fury. Oh, I don't. I love the debate, and for those that make it, I listen to it. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. But I don't have the emotional, oh my god, reaction to people that question Brad Holmes because I'm in the questioning business, and even if Brad called me out, I still would question things at times because
Yeah.
that's part of life in the NFL is exploring why did you do this? Why did maybe you do that? Why didn't you stay at certain spots? Or why, look, here's a debate, and I'll throw it out there to your audience. Because guess who also drafted two cornerbacks? That would be the Philadelphia Eagles. And they went with two different cornerbacks. So to me, the first thing I'm going to watch outside of the Lions is how do Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell perform for the Eagles because they got two different cornerbacks than we got. And Rakestraw is a good player, but he also has some question marks that people talk about in regards to his size and ability and coming off of injuries and things like that. Where can he play the best? So in the NFL, look, there's always, and I'll say this to those that are just praying at the altar of Brad Holmes. There are multiple ways to build a winning team. And just because some people like a different way that the Lions could have been built, then it's not something that you just discount. You entertain it, you look at it. Hindsight is always 2020,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that the opportunity to also give credit where it's due, but also to look at, hey, if Brad Holmes might have did something different a couple of years ago, and I'm not going to say this. I mean, I'm not going to put a stamp on it, but maybe someone out there in the internet world could say, well, if they didn't draft Penei Sewell and they drafted Micah Parsons, maybe they put Brock Purdy on his ass a lot more than they did in the championship game. Now, I thought it just now the last 10 seconds, but there's somebody out there in this world that thinks it. I'm okay with Penei Sewell, but I'm also okay with somebody that says Micah would have looked good roughing up some quarterbacks in the Lions uniform. You know what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, but then we can go down the rabbit hole and say, well, if they didn't draft Panay Sewell, maybe they don't have the greatest backfield in the history of the NFL, which helps us to win games and get as far as the NFC Championship. So I think that's like you can play that game forever.
That's
I
what makes
think
it fun.
exactly.
That's what makes it fun.
But as
You know,
but
I got your brain. I got your brain churning. I got your audience going. Oh, that doc. He's stirring the shit. He's stirring the gumbo. That's the job, baby. That's the fun part. I mean, I
that's
don't
true.
believe that,
Yeah,
but I can say it freely and smile. We can laugh. That's the
that's
whole
right.
point of sports, is to
That's
say,
right.
you know what? I could theoretically say Micah Parsons could have been the guy in Detroit that took us over the hump. You never know.
That's
But
true.
Panay Sewell is more than enough. And I think that he's going to lead us to a lot of good things in the future, too.
I think so too. I think so too. Well, I did have to stop myself, as I said, when I was having my meltdown about Jared Verse. I did have to stop myself about shaking my fists and saying, "Why didn't you trade up to 19?" But they could have gone different ways, and they went that way, and they got him. But the funny thing is about us Lions fans, we're trapped in a situation where we're still going, well, this is what good teams do, right? So you mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles, and everybody would say that the Philadelphia Eagles are a good team, right? They've been to a Super Bowl and things of this nature. So now when they draft two cornerbacks back to back, then you go,
Yeah.
okay, it's fine because a good team did it, but
Yeah.
not like understanding that we are now a good team. So some of the things that we do, other teams looking at those and going, hey, the Lions were successful in doing that. Maybe we should do it as well. But as far as the two cornerbacks, I don't know that Brad Holmes was trying to do that because if you listen to his press conference after the second round, the second and third round, he said they were trying to trade up to like the mid to early 30s. So maybe it was a defensive end. Maybe it was a Nealand, or maybe it was a Jazon Newton. Shout out to the Falcons. Shout out to the
That's right.
Falcons. I don't know what they were doing, taking Rook Orahoroho over Jazon Newton. I really didn't understand that one at all. Did you see the thing that the graphic that they put out about Michael Penix on their
I
Instagram?
did. I saw it. Listen, outside of me, you, the best follow on the internet is Antonio Brown. I think his commentary on life is unique.
Uh-huh.
It's sometimes funny, very controversial, but I saw it through his Twitter page, and good job, Falcons. I always joke on my podcast that, people only have one job to do sometimes, and they can't master that. If you're a graphic designer, when you see Michael Penix's name, there's only one job you got to do, and that's make sure there's no S after the I. And you messed that up still, and it got through and posted and all that kind of stuff. But it's a wild time in this day and age, and you just can't get good help sometimes, right?
And that's right. And as a graphic designer, because I do some myself, it's how it's not even about spell check. It's a graphic.
Yeah.
What I don't know. Maybe he was daydreaming.
Right.
He or she. Okay, maybe it
Yep.
was a she and she was daydreaming, or maybe someone just had a bone to pick with the organization and didn't care
Yep.
about their job and they just went and put that through. I have a friend who's a Falcons fan, and he was like, "That was obviously a hack. They hacked the social media account. It's possible. I don't know." But before we let you get out of here, let me ask the chat. Do you guys have any questions for the doc? Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll try to get questions in for the doc before we get out of here. See, we got Justifan, Nick, David. Nick says, "What are we drinking?"
Haha, Nick knows that today is Tuesday. It's still early in the week. Maybe tomorrow we'll do some drinking. Today on Tuesday, just Perrier. I know I do a lot of talking. I've been experimenting. Typically I'm a beer guy, but I had a guest over recently, and maybe tomorrow I'll bust it out again. But you know what's good, guys? Werner's and Fireball has a great cinnamon taste, and if you mix it just right, it tastes just amazing. So I had that over the weekend. Trying different things, but I'm mostly a Corona, Coors Light kind of guy. But yeah, when you're in the talking business, you got to keep the voice hydrated, and you gotta keep drinking water. Water for the chef, because I wanted to keep it professional. Because if I did drink, I might be saying some things that get me kicked off the air.
Well, one thing I didn't have was my coffee today, as it is. It's almost 11 a.m. here. Everybody knows I'm in Australia. I'm in the future. You guys will get to 11 a.m. eventually. What is today? On May 1st. See, you guys are still April 30th. You know. So David Barton says, it's not really a question, it's an opinion. He says that Vaki will be good this next season, I think.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a chance to see the field. Look, when Ben Johnson's your offensive coordinator, you got that offensive line, you got Gibbs and Montgomery teaching you. You saw the skill set that he's got, athletic. Everybody likes him, so I think that he has a good chance to do some things, and can't wait to see it. Mini camp comes up in next month, and we see the rookies next week. So absolutely, I think Sione Vaki will be somebody that will be given a shot to compete. But don't sleep on Craig Reynolds and Bam Knight. Those guys are going to be on notice now too. Like, oh, they brought in somebody for our jobs. That's going to up the level of competition.
I think that's one thing that I remember. I heard or I saw a tweet. Someone said that they thought Sione Vaki was brought in to replace David Montgomery.
No.
I closed the app and put my phone down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Montgomery's different, man. Montgomery is untapped potential too, man. I think that he could do even more, and I think that what a great first season for him, and I love what he brings to the table in regards to somebody that's a perfect mix with Jahmyr Gibbs. I love Dave Montgomery. I love the way he runs, his physicality. I think he brings the swagger offensively that you like, and now he's year one in the system. Year two is going to be great.
I think if him and Gibbs, the electrician as I call him, I think if they've been working on their timing with Goff, it's going to be ridiculous, because there were some touchdowns that got left on the board because for whatever reason Goff and Gibbs just couldn't get on the same page as far as the passing. So I think if they fix that up, obviously JMO as well, it's just going to be electric. It's going to be very, very exciting. But that is it for today. I'm going to let you get out of here. Tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely, Chef. Thank you so much. I love seeing your commentary. I love all the posts that you do. Love that you're podcasting, broadcasting. I hope your chat like me this evening. Everybody's fan base is different. I hope they enjoyed the hour. I was only supposed to spend a half hour, but you know what? Talking football, it goes by so fast. I could talk 2-3 hours about so many different things. So thank you for inviting me. For those that don't know, I probably have the most names and titles in the media, but it's real simple. I want to be known as a podcaster. That's what I came up through the media. Mm-hmm. I took my Detroit sports podcast and I partnered with Sports Illustrated. But you can find everything. All the chaos can be found at Detroit Podcast. It's where I post the articles, the videos, the interviews. All the stuff and content is found there. But if you're on the Google machine, it's real simple. You just type in Detroit Lions SI, and our content will pop up right there. Or if you go directly, it's si.com/NFL/Lions. I'm a credentialed reporter. I'm there every time. I'm there asking the questions, probing, learning what goes on behind the scenes with the Detroit Lions, and bringing you guys in-depth interviews, highlights, videos, as much content as you guys want. You guys crushed it. I'm very grateful to be in the media. I'm like Chef. I just was a guy that loved the Lions. I was a season ticket holder, and I said, I think I have a chance to take an audience that we built through the Detroit Sports Podcast, and let's see if we can become a respected media group. And over 5-6 years, we've accomplished that goal. I'm going to be doing it a lot more, and you guys have seen it. Guys like Chef, other young digital sports guys have challenged me to get out there and do more videos, do more interviews. Me personally, I'm more of a behind the scenes audio podcast guy. But, with the Mediterranean olive oil skin, I could, put myself out there. The videos, the camera doesn't hate me. So I'm doing more videos, more video podcasts. I'm enjoying it. I'm just taking what the podcast was and just recording it on a video. So, and all the thanks that the appreciation I have for people that like me and people that don't, it's all good. And I enjoy coming on podcasts like this. I enjoyed the hour. I wish we could do 2, but I got to get home because after covering the draft for 30 hours, 40 stories, 3 podcasts, and doing many more this week, your boy's a little tired. So I appreciate it. And please keep supporting local content. Support Chef. I hope everybody liked it. I'm looking forward to invite me again. Let's have a conversation during the season.
Anytime. And likewise, I would like to come on and talk with you on the podcast as well.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
All right. Appreciate you, Doc. We'll let you get out of here. All right, guys. That was the Doc, John Macaron. And as you said, you can catch him on Detroit Podcast on Twitter. If you haven't seen his content, it is great stuff. He's a great follow. The content has becoming fast and furious, especially with the draft. And he had Eric Kramer on. It's just a bunch of stuff that he's putting out, a bunch of videos. So if you go follow him on Twitter, if you're not already, or X as they call it now, go ahead and do that. Guys, I appreciate you coming by. And as we say all the time, if you didn't subscribe on the way in, subscribe on the way out. If you didn't smash that like button on the way in, smash the like button on the way out. And if you didn't share on the way in, share on the way out. And if you did do any of those things, I appreciate you. And I ask that you keep coming back, keep supporting me, keep hanging out in the chat so we can interact. And I will keep going live at 8 p.m. Eastern. So as always, until next time, peace.